is that the only thing I think that kids should be learning, and frankly, anyone right now, even a 50-year-old adult that doesn't know this, is entrepreneurship. How to identify problems and solve them, how to rally the right resources and deploy them, how to figure out what you need to learn and what you need to delegate. Like these things that make an entrepreneur successful, that's what those kids need to learn, right? So their entire life, if they need something that doesn't exist, they can build it.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is episode number 2 of the Beyond Virtual podcast, and I have one of my favorite people on the planet, a very good friend of mine, a genius, a mastermind, a multifaceted entrepreneur and business owner, Mr. Cory Warfield. How you doing today?
Well, I was doing really well, and then after that intro, I'm doing even better, and classic Shane style-y, so let's go.
Well, I mean, to be honest, I don't feel like my intro just did it justice. And this podcast should take 6 hours, and to sum it up into 45 minutes is a true shame. So we're definitely going to have some sequels after this. But for those of you that don't know who you are, if you could do your best to sum it up, please tell the world who you are and what you're focusing on today.
Well, thank you so much. I guess I look at myself as an anomaly because I dropped out of college after 1 year in the mid-90s, got into software for some years, tried my hand at being a famous rapper. It didn't work, and that ended me kind of working in restaurants. I started washing dishes, then busboy, then waiter. And I ended up working in restaurants for almost 20 years. So in that 20 years, I was, corporate executive, traveled the country. I had many properties under me at some points. Many other points, I went around and opened new concepts, and I tended bar and I waited tables. But so, I didn't have business experience. I briefly held a role as a teenager in the pharmaceutical industry. But other than that, my entire adulthood was slinging steaks, slinging wine. And I was getting close to 40, and I was working, around 80 hours a week. And it was okay. I worked at nice restaurants. I was making strong 6 figures. But at some point, I realized that I was just kind of a servant in the castle. And some of my favorite movie stars and musicians and athletes that I grew up admiring, were my regulars. And I had some of their cell numbers and could text them. And so, right. But I realized, even though we had a friendly relationship and they would tip me well and they would, ask for me if they came in, I was not on the level. And it just getting close to 40 with my feet hurting every day, I realized I did not want to be on the level. Right? I'm like, I have more to offer, and I've excelled in this industry. I've contributed to tens of millions of dollars of growth in this industry that I feel, frankly, like I've outgrown. And so I started a company, and I'm a little crazy. Typically, I don't like to take no for an answer, and I don't care what people think of me. So I think everyone in their life starts a tech company. It just usually lasts for about 8 seconds because you tell someone, they're like, you can't do that. And you're like, oh, okay, then I guess I can't do that. I didn't hear any of that. I'm like, well, yeah, I can. And so I started a company using data to help the restaurant industry schedule their staff more efficiently. Right. The premise was they have data to know who needs to work when and who wants to work when. And right, there are single parents working late shifts. There are people coming in late, and right, let's just use the data and sync to mobile apps. And so somehow, with no experience, I put together a team, put together a product, and we were able to raise 3 funding rounds. I was able to exit that company at some point, and they later sold the tech off. But the learning from that company was not only how to kind of, pitch and raise money and build product and scale product. And ultimately that technology became part of a compliance engine, and it had some minor disruption, in some circles, but really, other than learning entrepreneurship, and I was fortunate, I went through a top-rated accelerator and post-accelerator and stuff like that, but with social media. Right, I had mastered the algorithm on LinkedIn. I had mastered content creation on LinkedIn. I was able to use LinkedIn to get inbound leads. It's how I got some of our bigger national accounts. And so when I found myself kind of as a exited founder with no real direction in life. I just started more companies and learned along the way. So now I'm on companies 12 through 15, actually technically 12 through 16 if we're counting. And I guess we should, my brick and mortar, that, it's overnight success. We're launching on Friday, but it's been like 3 or 4 months we've been putting into this brick and mortar. But so yeah, I've been saying 12 through 15. I guess we're on 12 through 16 now that are actively in business.
I actually didn't know that background of you until now. We share that in common. I actually went to culinary school, ate my way through that, and worked in the restaurant industry 80 hours a week, every single weekend, every single holiday, and decided enough is enough. I want more. And I see that hunger, that same mentality, that hustle there, that self improvement, that growth, the nonstop, which is amazing. First off, 12 through 16, absolutely crazy. And I don't understand how you even have time for your wife and for your daughter.
Because of you. Oh yeah, we're working on all that. My wife told me not to take business calls on the weekends anymore, so I haven't. So now she kind of gets me off all Saturday and Sunday.
And I know that you're in the people industry, but with AI combined into that too. And I want to know, especially in today's day and age, right? April 22nd, 2025, with where AI has been, especially in the last couple of years. And I know you've been involved in AI a lot longer, even before it became mainstream. How are you integrating AI with your current businesses today, including even your brick and mortar that you're opening up? And explain how you're using humans and relationships to kind of encompass your AI tools that you're using.
Yeah, well, that's interesting. Our brick and mortar is not really AI yet, and I'm the husband of the general manager and the one of 2 silent investors. So I guess it's home healthcare in Brazil, and I'm not fluent in healthcare or Portuguese, so there's not much I can do. I think I've used AI maybe to translate some of the documents so I knew what I was signing and stuff like that. I have told them that I'll use some of the AI tricks in my book to help them scale their social media a little bit when they're ready, but it's one of these balancing acts where I think as an owner, we should have more of an authentic brand, and it's really hard to automate or delegate personal branding. So, we can grow a business page, but it's much different than having an executive that's an influencer. But for every other one of my businesses, I use AI for, I can't say everything because you're right, I'm in the people business, but I use AI to do things now like build landing pages, A/B test them, drive traffic there, launch email campaigns. I use AI now that the ChatGPT image generator is so good. I use it to make one-pagers and pitch decks. I'm very bullish on some of the no-code tools like Replit. So I've used Replit to make a number of pieces of software that I use and that others have started to adopt. Being able to prototype software, just have an idea and build something, that's been a massive game changer for me. And I look at Firebase by Google as kind of the next up-and-comer. But then what I'm really using AI for is to have conversations with, to do market research and competitive analysis, and to, run pitches and see if this AI would hypothetically invest or buy what I'm selling. I do it a lot to do a lot, competitive research, market analysis, business modeling, financial models. Now that I can take Google LM and sync it, or Notebook LM and sync it to all of my data, I use it as kind of my personal assistant, right? Rather, but so it's in a lot of my workflow now. And I use it to summarize books and contracts and make movies and songs. So I think for me, what I don't use it for is original thought, right? I don't want original thought that's not originally from my mind. I don't use it to write any of my newsletters or content. I really feel like I need to have that connection with the reader and my audience. So yeah, that's about it. I'd say I probably automate 60 to 70% of my workflow in my digital startups.
AI in today's generation, it's that shiny object syndrome to new business owners and to entrepreneurs. And what I found for people like yourself and people like me, where they don't have a lot of time of the day, utilizing those tools are absolutely amazing to increase efficiency. And I'm glad that you have that level of authenticity because it just keeps true to yourself. But it's great to utilize this tool. I have a virtual assistant company, and I saw this coming about 5 months ago. And I actually want to share this with you because I haven't shared this shift that we've been making. So you're actually going to hear on kind of the ground floor of this huge transition that we're making.
Wow.
So what we're doing is about 4 months ago, I've completely shifted gears to a profit sharing model for my virtual assistants. And the main reason why is because I'm doubling down on relationships. And so with this, I have biweekly accountability calls with my directors, which are 9 of them. And they have accountability calls with their managers, which we total in 39 managers that oversee 500 plus virtual assistants in this company. So why? Why are we doing this? Because relationships are so crucial into this day and age, into this technology focus, this AI focused age that we're going towards. However, if we can take that, instead of being afraid of AI tools and utilize that for efficiency and learn Gemini and ChatGPT and OpenAI's 40 different platforms and programs that they got going on and Make and everything else in between. If I can train a very high-leveled individual that can absorb this information and know these 10 different AI platforms and give them to my clients and say, hey, look, I now sell somebody who doesn't have a background in content writing, in accounting, in admin, in prospecting, in video editing. I have somebody that can do it all. I have somebody who is trained in these 10 different AI softwares that do this and this and this and this. That's what people are going to want to hire. Is everything you just said. I may want to learn that information myself, but even if I did learn it, I don't have the time of the day to do it all myself. I have to delegate because I have 4 businesses to run. I have a family to oversee. I have investments. I have X, Y, and Z to do, especially when you're successful. Time is the most valuable commodity that we have. So I'm changing the entire game of virtual assistants. I'm doubling down on relationships with my customers, with my employees to their customers, and focusing on utilizing AI and the tools that they have to train my entire team and the new people that we bring in to essentially offer these high-level business virtual assistant executives to do everything for the clients. What do you think?
I think it's incredible and absolutely disruptive. And, you know, as someone that's been talking about the shift to a post-labor economy for a very long time, and as someone that does have, you know, projects and investments and interest in many parts of the world, I love that, especially because different amounts of money mean different things to different people in the world. To know that kind of an American company doing profit sharing with other parts of the world is massive. I think it'll also inspire quite a bit. I think one of the initiatives, and I'm even talking to several of the you know, whatever it is, top 6 or whatever tech companies in the world by market cap or market share, about universal basic compute, basically a portion of their bottom line revenue that is displaced from humans no longer being paid that for the same outcomes. But what you're talking about is kind of an early and internal UBI as well, which everything I do contributes to UBI. I've helped launch a UBI product as part of my platform. And so I absolutely love it, applaud it, commend it. I think it's got to make people even more compelled to do business with you. And the interesting thing is this is a podcast, but it's for a very unique audience. So I can say this very wholeheartedly and authentically, is what you've built is so unique, right? And it really is. It's the communication. It's the multiple touch points. It's the flexibility. It's the depth of training. And so to think of you taking that to the next level and having more people experience that because you continue to stay at the bleeding edge, that's brilliant. Absolutely love it.
Well, I'm definitely excited for the future failures to come into place because this is essentially starting from scratch already over again. And I'm definitely going to be knocking on your door for some some Q&As and some tips and tricks here.
Any time, but are you playing with GenSpark yet?
No, and the other one that you did mention, by the way, that does the virtual podcast in minutes. So I forget the name of the AI.
It's Notebook LM.
Notebook LM. It's shocking. It's shocking. I mean, it sounds like AI, but the in-depth conversations that they have and they put against each other, because that was the first thing that I essentially played with is the relationships.
Do you interrupt them?
No, I just let it go. I wanted to hear a whole recording of it. I asked for a recording, so I have a 10 minutes.
Did you know you can? Did you know you can join the conversation?
I did not know that.
So here's what you do. You give it like 15 textbooks. You have it create a half-hour podcast, but then you stop it every few minutes and ask it questions, and it knows everything in every one of the textbooks. Or you give it whatever corpus of information. It's literally like having a incredibly proficient tutor in your back pocket, 24/7 personal assistant. I can give it the 3.5-hour manuscript of my master class and then ask it anything about LinkedIn viral growth, and it gets it like that. It's what takes the podcast to the next level. Like, yeah, the podcast, as you've seen, is awesome, but being able to engage with it, it's a bona fide disruptor.
I know with the new updates that just came out with ChatGPT releasing their newest model that has the potential. Well, they're saying that it has the I'm forgetting the score that humans are rated on when you're
Turing test. It passed the Turing test. Well, it did pass the Turing test,
which is absolutely insane. But especially, that's what I'm saying. It's April 22nd, guys, 2025. The last 3 months for AI alone has been unreal about what's coming on, especially the money that's been diving in. I can't think. Oh, the IQ test, which essentially kind of goes hand in hand.
Yeah,
but reaching at 145 already. I mean, that's unbelievable. We're already talking about the highest level of individual scholars on the planet or has ever existed. I think there's only 3 or 4 people that have surpassed that level of IQ. So the fact that our technology is above the 99.99% of the population is surreal. At April 22nd, 1:35 p.m. PST on 2025. So I have to ask,
please,
because I'm very, very curious on where this is going to shift. Knowing where my direction is going, I'm doubling down on the human aspect, and knowing where AI is, even on this high IQ level. We both see the future of where this is going, especially with robotics coming into play. Where do humans come into play? How long does the blue collar and the white collar industry have here?
Oh, so there's no more blue collar industry. There's no more white collar industry. What we're actually seeing is we could now deprecate somewhere in the neighborhood of 90% of all human work, right? These systems are passing the bar exam and they're passing the medical exam. They're far more accurate as surgeons and assembly line manufacturers and delivery. I mean, there's really no jobs or work as such for humans in, call it 2 years ish. Now, here's one of the things I'm building toward and working on. This is what I think becomes existential is people should be not paying, but getting paid to use the AI, right? If the AI is generating all the money and it needs people to use it, people should be getting paid to use it. So we hear that data is the real king. One of my companies, Verified, is building the first human-to-human protocol and social media platform where every account will be verified by a notary public. We will triangulate every time to make sure every verified profile is a real human who says it is who they are, right? Everything they post, we're going to make sure that the music gets the proper credit. And if there's monies involved, it goes to the right creatives. The videos are either real or marked as AI generated? Same thing with the music, same thing with the stories. Right? Do they check out across some of our different balances? But then post to any platform. Push your verified profile's content to Facebook, to TikTok, to LinkedIn, right? And people will know that this is verified Cory Warfield, and the music and video in there are verified. We believe this is a way for advertisers to ensure that they're advertising to real people and not bots. But this is also the way that you can ensure that you're generating clean data, right? OpenAI, Google, all of them are trained on so much corrupt data that the tech deficit is insurmountable, right? So even though OpenAI is launching their own social media platform with only real humans because they're also in the proof of humanhood, or they call it personhood space, but they're still building on top of all their corrupt data, right? So it's problematic. But humans generating real human data that can be attributed to them and getting compensated for any things that those outputs generate financially, that's huge. The AI needs this. The AI needs to train on human minds. We've also seen things like human brain stem cells can power compute and can power some of these models. And so I think keeping humans truly in the loop, right? One of the things that we're building toward at one of my companies, Loving is AI, is quite literally having humans around the world look at every component of an AI output before the human user gets it, right? I want people around the world to take a look at my video and say, is it funny if it's supposed to be? Does it look real if it's supposed to? Does it violate any copywritten material? Because I don't want it to, right? So if 10 people each look at my video I'm generating before I get it, and they all give it a thumbs up or they rate it 1 through 10, all 10 of those people should get a little bit of the money that I paid to generate that video. Now, if we continue to do that, it incentivizes people to use it and use it and use it more and more and more, and to generate more and more and more valuable and clean data. And it gives people something to do that does provide, income for them. So I think using AI will become the job.
It's a very scary perspective, especially if you're considering, those types of people and telling it to them. And there's a lot of different directions that I can take this conversation, but I'm not going to, because of what you're saying, which I actually think is very factual and true. I want to introduce what is, and I'm just very curious on this as well. What is your input on what are humans' lives worth? I know the ultimate question is, why are we here, right? This is something that I frequently talk to myself. And for God, what is my purpose? Which is to help other people, is to give, like it's to have your true mission statement here. What is your purpose in life? But a lot of people, the vast majority of the bulk, the regular people who have the 9 to 5, they associate that, hey, what do you do? It's the very first question that you ask. What do you do? I'm an electrician. I own a plumbing company. I have a franchise chain of restaurants. Like, what is then humankind worth? Like, what do they associate themselves with if they're just data drivers, if they're just consistently, on their phone, and that's their jobs now? I just don't understand where that mindset of a healthy well-being goes.
Well, I can tell you something that I believe it's too hard to believe, but I think it's too true to bypass, which is I think we're going to be interplanetary fairly soon, right? And I believe that there will probably be planets where there's no electricity and people are growing trees and making cabinets and eating food from the land. And I think that will be something where years and years and generations down the road, people start to, maybe build printing presses or, start to industrialize in some forms and fashions. I think there will be other planets where humans likely are growing to be thousands of years old and able to, fly and be bulletproof and be completely immune to any diseases. I think that there will be a period of time where humans are just exploring the Earth and then the solar system. I think people are going to be creating worlds to live in, right? I believe that we're going to have access to other dimensions very soon, as well as time travel. And I've said that, as well as immortality, for a long time, but all of a sudden everything is starting to to pop up to support that thesis. And so right now there are dermal layers that are just like wearing another skin, that have sensors that can make you feel anything, taste anything, and smell anything. Right? There are lenses you can put in or over your eyes that obviously do an overlay and let you see anything. But there's now, it's amazing, some of the AI that can reconstruct the past with various data points. This is an example I give. I used to play lead guitar, and I was lead singer of a band in 1994. Right? This is before cell phones or smartphones. This is before social media. I don't have any recordings of this. We pressed a couple 7-inch records that I don't know where I would find right? I can find a few articles written about our band in Northwestern University's publication from the mid-90s, right? Where data is going very quickly is data will be able to pick up on so many of the different things about how I am now, music that I've listened to, the patterns of what I've listened to on Spotify over the years, what bands opened up for some of these bands and my, that I was likely to hear, and start to reverse engineer and give me a video, or through these lenses and haptic, an experience of playing on that stage at the Vic in 1995. Right. And I will be able to go back and see it. I will be able to go and see what my grandfather's daily life was when he was selling end caps to grocery stores in the 50s. Wow. Right. So if I'm seeing it and feeling it and experiencing it, it's very difficult to say that that's not living in the past. Well, equally interesting is that the AI is able to interpret our dreams, current dreams now, as videos that we'll be able to experience. So now you talk about lucid dreaming and walking in your dreams and interacting with it. Data is also getting very good already at predicting the future. And this is what AI is. It's just tokens predicting the next token. So, right, you start to look at things like more compute and test time compute and inference. You start to look at these reward-based processing and fine-tuning, and you say, okay, it's not going to be too long before AI can pretty accurately predict the future as well as reconstruct the past. And when we can get into an exoskeleton or a dermal layer, and we can then, right, it starts to say, okay, are we in the fourth dimension, or does reality not exist, or were we already doing this as a human species for the last thousands of years, and this is a simulation, or, right? So I think we're going to start to just have more tools to figure more stuff out. And something I posted that didn't get a lot of attention the other day, but is Trump's Secretary of Science and Tech just came out and said that we have weaponry that transcends space and time. He literally came out and said that on camera. I posted it on LinkedIn. So if we have official spokespeople, right, from the senior most offices of technology and science saying this, it's right. And I've seen some of the technology that's not allowed to be released yet. And I hear that there's a lot that I'm not allowed to see yet, and that's fine. But the paradigm is shifting, right? And, you can even make crazy arguments like, a lot of alien races, don't have, or species that have been speculated don't have gender, or, there's not a big deviance on how they look, right? Very homogenous. And, right, we say, okay, where are we going as a species? And to me, interplanetary is the only thing that makes sense. It's why we're actively building hotels that go further and further into space at my company Ascend. Now we haven't broken space yet or broken ground, but we've got a solid team and we've got some pretty powerful stuff behind us. And we think that's where humanity's headed.
The crazy thing is, if we would have had this conversation 2 years ago, I would have said that you're absolutely crazy. You have nothing behind you. There's no factual evidence of anything that you're saying. And now I'm like, this doesn't sound so far-fetched. This actually sounds like a possibility here. And I don't want to dive too much into detail here because unfortunately we don't have that much time, but I feel like you and I have to have a follow-up conversation on this. And shockingly, I felt like you've been asked this question a few times based on that type of response. So that's very interesting in your input. I want to know your...
And Shane, very quickly, I haven't been asked it like that specifically. Really? I think about it a lot and I talk about various components.
It was so fluid.
And I'm working on it, right? So I think I live and breathe this, but it was a great question. And it was not one that's in my back pocket. That's for sure.
I have a question because we both have kids. Your advice for how the future is right now. What advice would you give the kids to focus on, to the skill set to learn, to prepare themselves for this future life?
Well, and this is one I have been asked. I've only been asked this once. And just as a point of kind of clarification, my 18-year-old stepdaughter is not my biological. So I'll be 47 in a few days, I guess. No biological kids yet. I've raised a lot of dogs and cats, but I'm proud of her. And may, at some point I'd still love to have biological kids, but I've been, stepfather. I've been a godfather. I raised my baby sister who's 15 years younger than me. And so I feel somewhat qualified to answer. And a client of mine who he's a surgeon, he's an MD, he's a PhD. He has advanced degrees from Stanford, Harvard, and MIT. He's got a $2 billion venture fund. And so one of the smartest guys I know. I coached him. So he's a big influencer now on LinkedIn. But he came to me after the coaching. His entire goal was 30,000 followers so he can get his book published with his dream publisher. So we got on a call after a month or two. He's like, Corey, I hit 30,000 followers. We need to get on a call. I said, okay, we get on the call. He said, I broke 30,000 followers. I said, okay. He said, no, the publisher's publishing my book and they're giving me my advance and blah. I said, okay, that's great. I said, how's business? Because when I coached him, he said he didn't need business. He said, well, one of the guys I used to work with saw one of my posts and he reached out and they're putting $800 million into the fund. And so one of his friends, anyway, so they raised another $1 billion. I said, okay, this is fantastic. He goes, Corey, everything about the work we did was great, but now I have a question. He goes, I'm just going to keep doing what you taught me, but I have a question that doesn't have to do with LinkedIn. Do you mind if I ask you something personal? I said, well, sure, Mike. He said, I have all these degrees. Everyone thinks I'm so smart. He goes, I'm a little embarrassed to ask, but I have two kids, 6 and 8 years old. And even though, I know, quote unquote, everything to them, I don't know what I should be teaching them. He was like, although that, I know what I would be teaching them 10 years ago. I always knew what I wanted to. He said, but in this changing world, I look at my 6 and 8 year old, I say, what should I be teaching them? He's saying, Corey, because you're a futurist and I've come to know you, I'd really value what you think. And I said, well, here's the two things I know for sure you don't need to teach them. I said, the first thing that you don't need to teach either of them is anything about a job. They don't need to know what an application is for an interview. They don't need to know what a first day is like or what, right? And it's not because dad's a billionaire. It's that they won't work, but no one will work. Right? By the time they're of working age, unless you guys go to somewhere that makes shoes and doesn't check IDs, right? Then it's like these kids are never going to have a job. And I said, as much as this feels weird saying, neither one of them are going to ever have to learn to prompt AI, right? Because AI is understanding human words and soon human thoughts to the extent that they'll just tell the AI whatever they want and it'll do it, right? So that's not prompting. You don't need to, right? I said, unless you want your 8-year-old to start using it right now to make, choose your own adventure books or video games, but then they'll never need to know how to prompt. He said, okay, I buy those two premises. I said, okay, well, then we're on the same page. I'll tell you what I would teach them, right? I said, the only thing I think that kids should be learning, and frankly, anyone right now, even a 50-year-old adult that doesn't know this, is entrepreneurship. Yep. I think that's it, right? How to identify problems and solve them, how to rally the right resources and deploy them, right? How to figure out what you need to learn and what you need to delegate. Like these things that make an entrepreneur successful, that's what those kids need to learn, right? So their entire life, if they need something that doesn't exist, they can build it or they can have it built, right? Their whole life, if they need money, they know how to go out and make money. If they encounter a problem, right? I said, this is what I believe to be foundational. And he got kind of excited. We've now tossed around the idea of making a video game to teach, like an immersive VR video game to teach kids entrepreneurship. But so that's what I've got. Is someone without biological kids of my own yet. So take that with a grain of salt. But that's what I think.
Yeah, I think that's phenomenal advice for somebody who has kids. That's actively what I look for as well. I mean, is to how do you teach your kids, especially with this day and age? I mean, I was taught my entire life to get a job, to go to school, to, you know, if I get a better degree, then I'll get a better job and I'll still continue working. And if I work harder and harder, I'll get a promotion and get more money. But that doesn't solve anything. Yeah. Entrepreneurship is really the only answer to that and religion. I think if you believe in a higher power personally, you really have no fear. And at least that's what I've incorporated for my kids. If you believe in God, and this is my opinion, you have nothing else to fear because you know that you'll always be in his hands.
I agree completely. I'm also religious, and this is a very personal statement, but I do believe that we are going to see technology, and in particular AI, fundamentally change the perception of God and reality. Now, I don't think we're going to find anything that contradicts what, you know, Christ and the scriptures and prophets have said forever. I think if anything, it'll start to make more sense. But I do think that a lot of very deeply held convictions are going to be challenged, some eviscerated, and some very validated. And I will say, you've mentioned the date several times, and myself personally, I've kind of gone a non-denominational route in my spiritual and religious walk in Christianity. However, I do need to say, and I posted about it the moment that I saw it too, I know somewhere the power of the Pope is still shining down, but that was a very unexpected, I guess, although he'd been sick, but incredibly tragic blow to humanity. So rest in power eternally, Pope Francis.
Yeah, amen. Well, Corey, I just wanted to thank you so much for your time and for your wisdom, of course, today. And for those of you that want to reach out to Corey and get more of his wisdom or find out what he's doing or ask him more questions about the Hotel on the Moon or about his other 4 businesses that he's got and that he's working on actively, how can people find you?
Through my VA. Shane, I wouldn't have a list of every LinkedIn post I've ever done. I wouldn't be able to keep up with my own private community without the VA group and without my VA. So, you know, reach out to me, but it's probably going to be my VA that responds. Or, you know, that people have really adopted my newsletter, Tech for Good, on LinkedIn. I'm active there, but that newsletter is a great way to get at me, even though I have, you know, hundreds of comments per issue. I read them all. I respond to all of them. I broke this news. I've done almost 300 podcasts in my life, but I haven't done one in weeks. And I've only done a few ever on Riverside. Your other one being one of them. Today is my second Riverside podcast today. I love the other host and know her well, just like you. And so I said this on hers earlier, so I can't not say this on yours. Same day, same, right? But so this is breaking news as of today. I'm releasing a supplemental newsletter on Beehive, and I'm calling it the Best Tech Newsletter. And it's going to be about the best tech, but it will also be the Best Tech Newsletter. And my stated goal, I'm going to grow it to 1 million subscribers in well under a year. That newsletter is going to be an industry standard. So if you guys want to see and hear a lot more of my futurism and predictions and how to use it and leverage it, the Best Tech Newsletter is going to be a great place to keep up on all that as well.
The Best Tech Newsletter. I'm writing it down. You guys should be writing it down right now, making sure to go follow that and go follow Cory Warfield on LinkedIn. Send him a DM so my virtual assistant can respond to you. I appreciate the shout out, Cory.
Our virtual assistant.
Exactly. And awesome. Yeah, I appreciate you and I appreciate your time today. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to another episode of the Beyond Virtual podcast. Yeah, stay tuned for another one. I'm out, guys.